Thank you, all of you. I'm going to start the presentation in English, but I can make, of course, some intervention in French for probably francophone. I feel more comfortable. Well, okay. Then the purpose of this presentation, first of all, thanks for everybody. Thanks for Philippe. Thanks for the organization. Thanks for Musimorphoses also, who gave me the opportunity to be here. And the idea is to talk about the changes related to with the new musical experience through technology. Myself, I have some experience related on designing this interface between let's say the artists, the producers, and all the technologies which are involved. And of course, there are some important changes with the moving of the technology and with the streaming, and also with what should I call actually smarter musical reproduction objects. So I will first of all read a full text over here, and then make a presentation to make the presentation simple in few topics. Well, the audio industry evolution is based on constant growing technology and the development of standards once related basically to quality and performance according to certain price class. Nowadays, connectivity and certification protocols are the main issues for actual market demand. The DLNA, which related to Digital Living Network Alliance standard for the development of components as chipsets and complete devices at UPnP, which is the connection between computers or archives or whatever. New 21st century universal interfacing design between several connected objects can simplify the access of musical digital files. By the networking, an automatic interface can search and scan musical archives all over domestic files from computers, phones, tablets, external hard disk, or clouds file for real-time streaming. Well, the topics are smart music object. The more and more new smart music objects are to come, like radios, amplifier, and standalone speakers that may take several forms on the identity of each and every good industrial design, either nostalgic or new. Music is then a cultural value to play the new or replay the old experience in several identities, like monophonic, stereophonic, multi-channel, or to virtualize the listening of an old physical media, analog characteristic with no digital compression, coding, and decoding procedures. Well, second point is about the interaction, the listener interaction. With faster processor and algorithm and smart filters, it will be also possible to drastically change the listener interaction, not only by adopting an automatic room equalization correcting as a passive action, but also in the musical spatial drive as an active action, i.e. to navigate in the musical scene after software recognition of coordinate position of each music source. The spatiality of musical information will be similar to the multi-dimensional holographic image interpretation. Wireless smart speakers will be standalone complete system connected to the residential network. The industrial design concept will be of body and skin, which in turn can be adapted to a personal identity and taste in built-in screens. The future products can play the role of the new or the old in design and function. From the musical production side, the old packaging techniques and art related to physical media will be changed by virtual text and images for the smart listening objects. Regarding the listener experience, most parametric specification in the old hardware fixed platform may be substituted by programmable parameters to suit any wire-connected devices like record player and external vintage passive loudspeakers driven by smart amplifiers interfaced by common DLNA-compatible phones, tablets, or computers. The new innovative fronts will be to consider the whole design to reach the best listener past experiences and desire. The analog reference is still a must because of its very original non-encoded nature. Three methods can be applicable on the new listening technology, which are the full analogical, the hybrid, and the full digital. This is the main point of the presentation. But I will go further this presentation here to make the thing clearer. Well, once again, if we take the three first topics, which is related to the objects themselves, and then the listener interaction and the listener experience. I mean, the interaction, it's some kind of interface which certainly will grow, not only with the common interface, I mean, like telecommand or how do you say in English? Remote control. But also I can understand, as we have in many other applications, let's say ATM in banking and things like that, we have interface like biometric, and also some other intelligence, for example, to recognize some images and also to recognize some barcodes which are included in packed physical media, can be also an interface and to facilitate the communication between the future very predictable kind of interface that will change the communication between the listener interaction and the components that reproduce sound and music, of course. But beside this, we have the listener experience, which is related to some other sensorial experience. I mean, when I am listening, for example, yesterday evening, the interpretation of an old Pink Floyd tune of the 70s, and of course this immediately sent me back to the album, to the presentation, to the very first experience in other media, and this is also important when it's related to the new, even for the new generation who are interested of the evolution of music, if it's pop, if it's classical, whatever. And the purpose also of this presentation will be related. That's why I am inviting here Mr. Douek, who is also an electronic engineer and a musician, and he's a collaborator in some kind of researches we are developing together, which is the coherence in recording and reproduction techniques, which is a proposal to make something different, which is not definitely what is what we can see actually in the marketing approach. I mean, instead of listening of music, just like everybody knows, and myself, I do it in stereo mode, that is related when you have a conventional speaker at home, which is the sweet spot, so you cannot move unless you can miss the holographic view, and something new has to be changed. If I consider, for example, how old is the stereo reproduction, it goes far from before the Second World War. It's from the 30s. And until now, I can understand there is a big evolution about the media, but there is not so much investment and not really something new looking from the market side regarding the reproduction. We are still on stereo to make the holographic image, but if you move in your room or something like that, you're gonna miss the real image of the sound, how it looks like. Then what definitely happened is the drop in the industrial cost of course, and something increase in the final quality, but there is not that much really something new that can be experienced between the recording techniques and the reproduction equipments. So, if I go a little bit more here, when you are talking about the object, first of all, we can understand that they are connected between themselves. And not only by talking, you don't have to be connected in the web, definitely, but you can be connected, and you are connected in a residential network, and this is enough to have in several points a real connection with your musical archive, if either on a computer or whatever. But I will invite Mr. Douek to talk a little bit this kind of interaction. Maybe we can focus on this point here. With faster processor and algorithm and smart filters, it will be also possible to drastically change the listener interaction, not only by adopting automatic room equalization correction as a passive action, but a musical spatial drive as an active action, i.e. to navigate in the musical scene and software recognition of coordinate position of each musical source. If you take this, for example, when you have an orchestra in a physical space, this orchestra is supposed to be something which is positioned in a certain, let's say, geographic space. But the reproduction itself, it considers that you have to stand in a single point or use a headphone, which is originally designed not to listen to music, but to make monitoring of the recording. But if we consider something to change right now, and this to be considered also in the recording procedures, I think we can reach several distributed reproductions devices, independent, and they can be fed with different information, and through this we can have a new control regarding different tracks in the recordings. Instead of making a dual track recording and to retrieve the musical scene through only dual tracks, of course edited and so on, but to make the holographic image based only in two point source of recording and from reproduction, we can consider independent point sources related to the identity of the sound according to the desire of the artist. If you can say, for example, a reproduction, an amplifier for harmonica, comment est-ce qu'on dit harmonica en anglais? Harmonica. Then, if you talk to an artist, he said he needs a specific reproduction device for such instrument. So there is something relating to the identity of the sound and the material used. If you are reproducing, for example, a piano, you need the capacity of a chord and percussion at the same time. If you are reproducing woods, it's different, and if you are reproducing percussion, it's also different. Why, if we do not offer to the artist himself to choose how his art will be reproduced in real life through a new technique and through also a new possibility of recording and also of reproduction? If you can imagine, for example, a quartet reproduced instead of a pair of speakers, but of 4 different speakers which are selected by the artists and also in a straight conversation with a recording engineer, they can reach something completely different, and with your remote control you can maybe advance the sound of one instrument or put it in the background according to your taste and also according to the creativity of the artist. So I will ask Mr. Dezé, who is staying in France, to continue about this proposal, just because we have been discussing this from Brazil and France and also with collaborators in the US.
Yes, so my name is Frédéric Dezé. I got to know Sami Douek about 10 years ago about an amplifying technology. We worked on it, trying to make it reach your country in Brazil. And so we've been discussing about this. I'm a musician, I'm a sound engineer and a producer of music. So my side is the studio side. And I've noticed that the studio side, the producer are one side, and then the listeners are on the next side. Which means that we, sound engineers, we have the choice of making the mix. We are the one who decide how it's gonna sound at the end with 2 speakers. And then we have been hearing from the different presentations that there are different ways to tell us what is the music you like. So we heard about Pandora and this. So we have lots of computers and human beings telling us that you might like this and you might like that. But at the end, we don't decide so much about how we want the music to be listened. So the idea behind these new technologies is to give the possibility to the final user and auditioner to have a power on how he would like the sound to sound. So we have in the studios, we are using something that is called the plugins. Plugins is digital emulations of different hardwares, preamplifiers, preamplifiers, effects, compressors, all of that. And so now the digital technology and the DSPs we're talking about give us the possibility to use this on every track. So before, in the time, we used to have very, very expensive hardware, and now we can get cheaper software emulating the hardware. And where in this time we could use maybe one compressor because we couldn't afford more, now we have the possibility to use all of these effects, how many we want on every track. So the possibility of producing is endless. But still, all of this stays in the professional way. And we, the final consumers, we don't have access to those technologies. So through these new technologies, the DSPs getting more and more and more faster and strong, we could imagine to have access to different kind of emulated analogic technologies to choose the way we want to hear the music. So I think that now the amplifiers are getting better and better, almost perfect. The speakers, the same. We have speakers, even if it's an old technology of pushing and pulling, the way it works. We are about to have really, really good quality. But then we don't have any influence on the sound. We are getting the sound just the way it came out from the studio, going through the distributors, going through the iTunes or Spotify, whatever. So now these technologies, they give, I think, to the final user a power to choose the way he want to listen to it. Imagine you are going to listen to an MP3, and then you can choose what kind of vinyl sound you want. What kind of, if you want to listen to your sound with the 1963 model from this brand, you could use it. So it's creating more and more possibilities for us to choose the way we want to listen to music. And about this schema, imagine, you are listening to your favorite piece of music, and you always feel like, I would like the voice to be stronger. Then you use your remote and just hide the voice, So it can be a possibility for us producers and sound engineers to have, it's not like a 5.1, because 5.1 is just like you sit here in the sweet spot and you have the front speaker and the back speaker. So they let us believe that we have a control on the sound, but no, we are just like hearing it the way they wanted us to listen to it. Now, with maybe a new kind of multi-channel system, we could have like the drum and the bass and the drum and the keyboard and everything separated with the control on the effects. You love this track, but you think there's too much delay or too much reverb. Just shut down the reverb. But this is gonna create problems about egos, because sound engineer, they wanna have the control about how it's gonna sound. So there's a little, I think the future is gonna be like this.
Well, then we have also, just to finish, some old things that we have to consider. That's why we need something new to attract the people who are related to the past experience, as we said. And new experience, we give the possibility to reach new pleasure by listening to music. And finally, this, I would like to thank you for your patience. If you have any question, we can answer in English or in France, comme vous voulez. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.